Did the Rangers leave surprised with more pitching questions or answers? And then I'm going to swing back around to some other positional and roster questions because somebody was asking about Kevin Pillar. At this point, it feels like pretty much a lock that Kevin Pillar is going to be on this team.
It does.
But I was thinking about it, and you went in to spring training thinking that your rotation was probably set. Maybe Kumar Rocker would make a run at it.
People were complaining about John Gray. Like, can we make him a closer?
Yeah.
Like, we were at a point where we were like, we're pretty stacked, but now we're picking at our own starting rotation here.
And instead, you walked away, and you talked about this earlier with Malley, DeGrom, and Eovaldi in 2 spots up for grabs. Now, popular thinking is that Leiter and Rocker will take those spots to start, with then Corbin eventually, once he is up to speed and has got his arm built up, taking one of those spots so you have a left-handed presence in there. And I still think that is the way that it is likely to play out. But you got to be more concerned about the rotation now than before, right? Because of those 3 pitchers who are going to pitch, you have DeGrom, who I hope he's fine, but obviously notoriously has had a bunch of arm issues. Tyler Malley missed, like a year and a half, and then he came back, had 3 starts, had to be shut down. We had a scare in spring training as well. And so, the Rangers went a bold direction in building their rotation with people who have had injury concerns. And then when those players have injury concerns, you wonder about the depth. I wonder about the depth.
Okay, so that's interesting the way you just said that. They built it on players with injury concerns.
They do.
Chris Young said, my job, I think a GM's job is to constantly think about the things that could go wrong.
Yes.
And prepare for the worst case scenario. It is weird that when you're saying that, you're signing guys that worst case scenario is probably going to play out more likely. But I do appreciate, because how often do we argue that the Cowboys don't think that way?
Yes.
They're like, no, they're going to put a star on their helmet and then they're going to be
magically get better.
And with the Rangers, Chris Young is just like, I'm going to have a plan. I think that he's always kind of observing. They're always watching positions of need and trying to figure that out. We still probably have a lot of questions about the back end of the bullpen and what it's going to look like and how much we trust it. Because right now it's just played out in spring training. So do we trust it completely? But he said, I got to go find arms. I got to go get as many as I can. And if it's not good enough, we'll continue to get more.
And to your point, the ceiling is so much higher because you never would have gotten Jacob DeGrom if not for injury concerns. You could make an argument you wouldn't have gotten Tyler Malley or John Gray if not for the injury concerns. So that's
designer bin.
Yes.
Like, that's get the designer bin at the Goodwill.
That is kind of the deal that goes along with it. And so then you look at the 2 replacements, Jack Leiter and Kumar Rocker. Jack Leiter hasn't really had a whole bunch of injury concerns, but he's just had, can he find his stuff? Whereas Kumar Rocker, obviously another person who has had very famously noted variety of injury problems.
Yeah. There are, with the young pitchers, too, you just don't know exactly what to expect from them, so you're kind of hoping for some things. But if they can get them to those 3 pitchers, that's all you're really hoping out of those 2 is, can you get them to Luke Jackson, Robert Garcia, and Chris Martin? Can those young pitchers do that?
And so somebody brought up Dunning had a bad 2024. It's a disappointing spring. Boggles my mind that the Rangers waived him with the uncertainty of all the rotation in the bullpen. And so let's go back around to what some of your pitching specific options are. So we talked about the 3 main pitchers that are good to go, and we think Leiter and Rocker will make up the 5. After that, I think Patrick Murphy is still in the mix. We eventually think Patrick Corbin is going to get a shot, whether or not you think that's the right decision. So that's 7 right there. So I am still surprised that Dane Dunning didn't get a look. But then the other person is Adrian Hauser. Now, I know Hauser's not going to make the opening day roster, but he had 14 1/3 innings pitched in the spring, 3.77 ERA. So they probably view him as one of the next 3 up. So I think that the Rangers think all of those guys had surpassed Dane Dunning when it comes to the bullpen. Chris Martin, Luke Jackson, Robert Garcia, you just mentioned. You can throw in Sean Armstrong, Jacob Webb, and Hobie Milner. That was nosebleed seats guy. And so now all of a sudden...
Is Mark Church in the mix still? Okay, sorry.
No, that's a great question. I think so because, and again, this could change today, but usually we get some stuff like that earlier in the morning. But I think you look at it that Garabito is in the mix. Patrick Murphy, who we just talked about as a potential starter, is probably in the mix. And then Mark Church or Jacob Latz might be a little bit of a longer shot, but I think they're in the mix. So Latz, Church, Garabito, Murphy, maybe those 4 guys for the last 2 spots.
I need everybody to listen right now that's listening. If you're listening, I need you to listen.
Okay, I'm listening.
The Rangers will not get Bauer. They are not going to get Trevor Bauer.
It's not going to happen.
You can keep saying, oh, but look at him dominating in this league. What he's facing, the competition he's facing there, is nothing like what he's going to face in the major leagues. I know he's done it before. He is not the same pitcher. What he's doing now, he's good. He's really smart when it comes to pitching. There's no way they're going to touch that. They are going to stay away from it and avoid it altogether. That being said, though, they were up until the last minute trying to get Dylan Cease last year.
Yes, they were.
I strongly believe that Leiter, Rocker could, if they're not performing, but they're good enough, they could be bait for something else. There are lots of guys that could be, hey, we have our eyes set on something else. We're not good enough. We want to go get one more piece to add to this thing. Now, again, DeGrom and Eovaldi healthy. We've seen the Rangers go into a World Series and win with just 2 starting pitchers, essentially.
That is true.
So we know they can do that. They would prefer not to.
Yeah.
You want to make it through the season for sure.
Let's talk about Jack Leiter just a little bit more. Let's break down the spring. And all of this comes along with the spring of spring. You can take whatever you want or not take whatever you want out of spring training. But for Jack Leiter, pitched in 5 games, had 2 starts. 17 strikeouts in 14 2/3 innings pitched with a 3.07 ERA.
I'll take it.
Yes,
yeah,
indeed. There's just one more number you need to know.
Okay.
In those 14 2/3 innings, he also has 9 walks.
Walks are still there. And if he's not going to change that, if he's afraid to, throw certain pitches in certain areas, and that's part of it, or if it's just he can't find his command, he won't be there long. Like that's just the way that it is. If he's not finding his command, which is something that they have been on him about for, since they've brought him up, then he won't be up for long. But he's finding more of a rhythm, Kevin, than I think we've ever seen him with before.
I agree. And there are some reasons for that. First of all, increased velocity. Second of all, a new pitch. So let's talk about the increased velocity. Jack Leiter's rising fastball over 98 miles per hour. That's 2 miles per hour harder than he threw it in his big league debut. And he's topped out at 99.9. That's faster than any pitch he's thrown in the majors. We talked about that a couple of weeks ago in terms of how maybe he did his prep routine a little bit differently after talking with the pitching coaches. Then there's the vaunted kick change. Mm-hmm. So the kick changeup is averaging more than 92 miles per hour. And probably more importantly, it's got 7 strikeouts in spring training off of that specific pitch. So I told you he has 17 strikeouts.
For the kick change?
From the kick change.
Okay.
7 of those strikeouts are specifically from the kick change. So there was discussion. I get control is still part of it, and how he keeps himself calmed down is still part of it. But you wanted to add another pitch to the repertoire. Here you go.
I'm kind of curious, Kevin. That kick change, is it just for that pitch? Or is it for all pitches? I'm sorry.
No, yeah.
It's just his whole approach.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
No, but the kick change, specifically the changeup.
Gotcha.
It's specifically
helping that pitch.
Yes, specifically that pitch.
Well, that's impressive.
And that pitch alone.
I wonder if that throws off the timing of the hitter a little bit because, obviously that kick right there with the off-speed pitch, if that changes and alters the way that they're seeing that pitch come in. I like it.
And from the 817 and 940, these are fair things that you brought up. Y'all forgot Cody Bradford, and then what about John Gray? So I promise I did not forget about Cody Bradford. I'm just talking for myself. I remain concerned about what exactly is happening there. So with John Gray, we know he got transferred to the 60-day injured list. So he's going to be out for the first couple of months. But that's true. The idea is he'll come back, hopefully in the second half of the season, where I don't totally know if they'll just absolutely put him back as a starter, or maybe they'll reconsider, depending how the bullpen goes. We'll see about that. John Gray, one of our favorite people on the Rangers. And for Cody Bradford...
Yeah, it hurts my soul that he fractured his wrist.
It really... Because he talked about wanting to get to certain innings marks and everything.
How much chocolate milk he drinks.
Yes.
His bones are strong.
Absolutely.
You think it probably would have been worse had he not drank all that chocolate milk?
That's a good point. That is very good. Out for the season. That's why he didn't need surgery. And then for Cody Bradford, look, I feel like we kind of got fed some of this logic with Jacob deGrom a little bit ago when it was like, oh, no, yeah, he just tweaked it. We'll see how it goes. And then all of a sudden, bam, Tommy John.
Right.
And so with Cody Bradford, something
keep pushing it off and pushing it off until we have to.
It feels like something is off here because he was going to be shut down for 2 weeks and then be reevaluated. Okay. And then the scans came back clean. They don't have concern. At least that's what they said, it sounds like, about the structure of the UCL. And they followed it up with, he'll be shut down for an additional 3 or 4 weeks. That just doesn't make any sense to me. And people might be listening right now and be like, I am a pitching scientist. I know exactly what's happening. That's great because I want to know, because something about this doesn't add up. And I'm concerned, and it's not just the Rangers. All teams are not totally honest about what might be happening with their injury situation.
Think about how it affects you if you're trying to make a trade. If you're trying to make a trade and they're like, oh, dude, they don't have Cody Bradford. They need this. Let's squeeze something else out of them. That's one small way. There's a lot of other things that could be involved in this too. You also want to give the pitcher every opportunity to come back. Before you just say, like, he's probably sitting there saying to himself, I want to be back.
Yes.
And I'm going to do everything I can. And the Rangers are like, all right, even if they are looking at the information, they're like, it's not going to work. They still have to give him every chance.
And so that goes back to the idea of why did they move on from Dane Dunning? Well, if you think Bradford is coming back and Gray, you can just add those two more to the list of pitchers that the Rangers, at least this point, so they essentially think they have, 10 pitchers that they would start ahead of Dane Dunning? Mm-hmm. And when you need a 40-man roster spot, unfortunately, that makes you expendable. In the outfield, center field. Look, we talked about this last week. I still am curious to see what happens with Evan Carter. Leody Taveras is going to be on the roster.
Yeah. Yes, he will.
All right? But for Evan Carter, he's trying to be the starting center fielder, right? Like, that's the goal.
Yep.
But he's also trying to stay on the roster. Because last week, Bruce Bochy was asked, hey, would it be better for Evan Carter to maybe be hitting 7th, 8th, and 9th and taking off against left-handers, or leading off every single day in the minors? His answer, Bruce Bochy's answer, not my answer, Bruce Bochy's answer, that's a really fair question, and left it at that. So I still think you're looking at the possibility that Evan Carter does not break, I guess we've already broken camp, but does not start with the Texas Rangers, but he could still have the potential to be your starting center fielder. I'm really curious when we get that news in the next day or two. In the meantime, Kevin Pillar, Sam Haggerty are still in competition. I think Pillar is on the roster.
I do too.
I think, okay, so you think Pillar's there, and we agree that Leody is there.
Yeah, here's the thing that concerns me a lot, though, is...
And they did send Osuna down. I know that's somebody that...
What? That's it.
We talked about it.
I'm done with this season.
We talked about it, how that was probably going to happen, and they did. So if our dreams were that he would make the opening day roster, he has a bright future ahead of him, but it's not happening right now.
Okay, with Evan Carter, in his journey that he's going through, Ezekiel Duran not living up, to what expectations are of him as a backup outfielder. And that might be his last opportunity with the Rangers.
Sure.
And then like Josh Smith's everything back up. You don't have a lot of depth in the outfield right now.
I agree.
And that's where you have to have Evan Carter take that role, jump back into it, and be able to be who he was. Or you have to have Leody learn how to be able to hit better.
Yeah, and you're right, but also... it just doesn't feel like that is like that's going to happen at this stage of the game, right? Or that you're going to see it.
Yeah, I keep wanting it to click for him because I'm like, he's still young. He's got this ability. He's big, strong, fast, like all these great qualities.
And there are all kinds of reasons that certain players have deficiencies that prevent them from being desired by every team in Major League Baseball. So you look at Leody Taveras, like, holy smokes, is he fast?
Yeah.
And young and controllable from a salary point of view? What's the catch? Struggles hitting.
Yeah, he just can't hit the base. In baseball?
That's a pretty big part of the game.
This isn't track, Kevin.
Yeah, that's a pretty big part of the game.
It's okay if he can't dive head first.
Yes, that is such a weird thing. That really is. And so I just wanted to throw that out there. We'll get a lot more information, obviously, in the next 48 hours or so leading into Whataburger opening day. We'll be at the ballpark 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. doing our show on Thursday.